Those are some good clips. You need to put these in a book.
Instead of sitting back and saying AI is going to do my job for me, now is the time to actually get really motivated and learn your job better so you can do the stuff that AI can't.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another KiteCast episode. I'm Patrick Spencer, your host for today's show. Joining me is Bryan Cassady. Bryan, this is going to be a great conversation. Thanks for making time today.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, he's actually across the pond, I think, right now over in Europe. He is the director of Global Entrepreneurship Alliance and is on a mission. If you look at his LinkedIn profile, you'll see this, to train, what is it, Bryan? 1 million entrepreneurs on AI by 2027.
Yeah, that's looking a little close right now. Yes, that's the objective, but I'm at about 90,000. So next year is going to have to be 900,000.
90,000 is pretty good. Well, to our listeners, we'll obviously let you know how to get in touch with him at the end of today's podcast. Get in touch with him, help him get to that million mark. He has an impressive background. He's built 8 companies across 6 different countries. He's worked with over 30,000 leaders worldwide on a variety of different business initiatives. He's the author of award-winning books, one called Cycles and the Generative Organization. We'll talk a bit about those today, and we'll also include links. If you're on YouTube or Apple or Spotify, you'll be able to go to the bottom of the blurb and click on those links so you can check those out on Amazon. He's the creator of something called AI for Innovation Toolkit for human AI collaboration. I'm going to ask him to explain to us what that's all about. He's a professor, keynote speaker at Chicago, Bentley, a bunch of other places, KU Leuven, and he's led accelerator programs at European Innovation Academy and the Founder Institute. He has MBAs, not one, but 2, Cornell Johnson, Verilic Business School, and he also worked on a PhD. I forgot if you finished it, probably got sidetracked with all the other initiatives you work on, Bryan.
No, shoot, I didn't finish it, but life goes on. The person who'd be happy if I finished my PhD would be my mom. She wants to have a doctor in the family. But the good news, I'm actually on the stage in about a month with a Nobel Prize winner.
Oh, wow.
And my mom is more chuffed than anybody.
Yeah, she should be. So what's the topic about?
I'm talking about when help comes too early. And the idea is a talk around, we don't think, but we ask AI for help. And if we don't think first, we get really bad answers. Yeah. And I was sort of a long shot. I didn't think I would get into the conference. There's about 2,000 applicants for 10 spots. And I did get in. So I'm excited about that. Oh, my big cheerleader when I do something academic is my mom.
Yeah, I think mine is still as well. We're blessed to have good parents, aren't we?
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. So that's really interesting. I would say we also get lazy if we're not pushing AI at the same time. All right. I've found that those who, push AI and constantly want to learn more and are reading the outputs, they're learning something and they're pushing the coin versus just, as you said, help is important from an AI perspective. So that's maybe a great segue into our conversation. I have, this concept you write about in some of your writing, the 1% problem, why ideas don't translate into action. I suspect is a bit related to the topic we just mentioned.
Jesus. So this happened about a month ago. I was out at a cafe with a friend of mine, and he said, "Bryan, tell me about your book." And I said, "Things are going great. I'm on track I'm a few bestseller lists, got some good reviews." I said, "How many will you sell?" Well, I said, "Well, a bestseller isn't that many books, maybe 15, 20,000 copies." And then he grabbed a piece of paper and he wrote a bunch of numbers down. He said, "How many people do you think actually are going to use your book?" And he gave me the answer, which is 150.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what? That is impossible.
What was his algorithm?
So he went through a process, said, how many people are going to read it? And I said, give me your number, Brian. I said, 25%. He said, you're optimistic. Average business books are read about 10% of the time. What percentage of understand it? Oh, I'd say 50%. I write pretty well. All right. So we keep on going down. How many people actually plan to use it? Another 50%. How many people actually use it? 50%. And pretty soon you get down to the 1% problem, which is, you spend a year of your life writing a book, and the number of people actually use your book is less than you put in an auditorium. And that got me thinking. And about a week later, being a little bit of an entrepreneur, I said, look, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give my books away for free. And what I'm going to do is to make it easier for them to use it, I'm going to bundle my books with AI tools so that, in fact, not only do I get more books in people's hands, but I make it easier for people to use their books. And what we're seeing right now is I get about 1,000 downloads per week, which is good. Yeah. And the usage rate is around 20%, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
So, but this is something that comes up everywhere you go. It's not just with books. It's keynotes, it's trainings, it's internal sessions that you run in your company. And there's a huge gap between intention and action. And I think the role, or the new role of AI, is going to be to help close that gap. Because, if you know something, it's hard to apply it in the old way. I mean, just try it. Tell me the last book you read. And tell me about a framework which is in that book. Ooh, now tell me about a book you read 2 years ago. So, seriously, I can't remember anything anymore.
Yeah.
But if you say, look, I remember this book and it was sort of about this, and you ask AI, help me apply this framework, you can actually take those ideas that you had and put them in action really quick. And I think just going to change everything around. I got a lot of hate mail from fellow authors saying, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm trying to promote my business. My business is to help companies do stuff. They said, but you're killing the book market. I said, but no, it's not killing the book market. This is actually giving your book new life. Your book actually can now be used. Isn't that great? And maybe 50% say yeah, and 50% say, no, I don't like what you're doing, Mr. Cassady. So, I think it's an interesting question, but, really we have to move from a little bit our vanity metrics, which is how many books we sold, to how many people actually use the things that we share.
Oh.
And frankly, that's a bit humbling.
Well, that's an interesting, for our audience, many of them are CISOs and so forth, but they consume valuable content. And I won't name names, well, I could. The different companies and organizations that publish regular annual reports, guess what? Most of them are still gated. We stopped gating ours here at Kiteworks, for whatever it's worth, about 4.5 years ago when Tim and I first got here. We said we're going to stop gating this stuff because we actually want people to read it. Because when you gate it, then a lot of the audience will disengage. And I suspect the same is true from the book market. You have to go buy the book, and if you give it away, and then this concept of, taking the idea and having AI tell you, someone should do this with today's podcast, I guess, probably tell you what the key takeaways are so you can operationalize it in your life or in your business is important.
No, I think, like, you listen to this podcast, take the transcript and say, look, give me 3 things that I can do tomorrow based on it. Man, isn't that amazing? By the way, there's a interesting silver lining of giving my books away for free. I'm selling more than I've ever sold before. So actually what happens is you give away the PDF, people actually want to buy the physical book.
Interesting.
So not only do I get more people to use my book, but I sell more books.
A win-win.
That's a deal. It's a deal.
All right. Well, the link of today's podcast is at the bottom, so click on that, and you can get it for free. To Brian's point, but you also can buy a copy on Amazon.
I'll give you the link in the podcast. But I'm curious, Do you measure how many people read your reports?
We do, and the numbers are certainly more than they were when they were gated.
Yeah.
So you send it out via press release, you put it on social, blog about it, you put a Substack or two out on it, maybe more. You pitch it to the media, and if it's a darn gated report, then fewer people are obviously going to open it and register to actually get it, and then half the time you end up with Charlie Brown or Lucy,
Yeah.
Lucy submissions that are pretty useless at the end of the day. So since we stopped gating it, we know they get engagement and we get much better media pickup. There's a lot more people talking about it on social. I suspect you're seeing the same thing with your books.
Yeah, same type of thing. And I think in the end, what it does is it makes things a bit transparent. So in fact, if your report is delivering value, the business will come to you. If my book delivers value, the business will come to me. If it doesn't deliver value and you take that gate away, then you're really in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's drill down into, how businesses, because we have a bunch of listeners on our podcast today who I'm sure are business leaders, and they're struggling with AI adoption within their organization. Every day you feel farther and farther behind, or you can be. You have this quote in one of your books, you talk about AI must earn its keep, and you call out that 8 out of 10 organizations aren't getting real results from AI. And your claim is they're chasing the tools without the strategy or the change management that comes with that. So, can you describe the problem, and then what's your solution?
So I think the problem is bright, shiny lights. It's like, wow, look at this tool and this fear of missing out. And you try this and you try this and you try that. And, what happens is we end up using tools before we have objectives. So in fact, that's the biggest issue. But then the second issue comes up is when you're swimming in a pool which is 1 inch deep and a long wide. You don't actually get much out of the 1 inch. What you should be doing is using one thing and learning to use it well. And, what I see, the real opportunity comes up is when people go from objectives backwards rather than tools forward. So you say, look, I want to achieve this. Okay, now what do I need to do to get there? And then you actually get results. But too many times it's an external consultant, maybe somebody like me who came in and said, wow, this is an amazing tool. And you go install the tool and nobody uses it, or they get confused. Or worse yet, they actually end up working harder when they have AI in the bunch. Because in fact, you can generate so much content. And I don't know about you, but I can get a 50-page report from somebody. Are you actually going to read the 50 pages? And so I think, there's a question of earning its keep. And I think the opportunity for the future is to stop using AI and start working with AI. You start thinking about it as a means to an end rather than an end in itself.
Yeah.
And then you see different results coming in.
Yeah. So how can organizations, you have all these tools, should they measure the usage of their tools? We have a bunch of AI tools in our environment, and we can measure the use of some better than others. The outputs obviously is how, business should measure the results at the end of the day, but just knowing who's using it and how are they using it. Are organizations mature enough to do that today?
Most are not,
Yeah.
sadly. I think, the real metric is not usage levels. It's not efficiency levels. It's effectiveness levels. And usage is relatively easy to measure. Efficiency is sort of easy to measure, but effectiveness is hard to measure. And the real measure today should not be, can I write a report 6 times faster, but can I write a report that is more convincing, more useful, and more valuable?
Yeah. Very true. Very true. So you also talk in terms of, I have some notes written down here, the integration portion of AI. When you pick these different AI tools, they kind of be integrated into your business processes. Because if you can throw a bunch of AI tools, to your point, out there, but unless they actually are integrated into what matters to your business and your workflows and so forth, then they 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 don't really deliver true value. That's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, with AI agentics, are we beginning to see that come to fruition?
Yeah. So, the integration for me is about something that's kind of non-sexy, but I still continue to talk about it because I think it's really important. Every business is a system. It's a bunch of things working together. And what you need to do is you need to think about how things integrate and how they work with one another. If you can pump out more material faster and you've got a bottleneck somewhere down the road, it doesn't help. So an integrated company is actually a company that looks at the whole system and identifies where are the weak points in the system and improves those weak points. And sadly, so few companies are interested in systems thinking because it requires hard thinking. But sometimes hard thinking is the right thinking.
What's your perspective? And I think this goes into this fact that it just can't be AI. You got to have a human component. They go hand in hand, and that's one of the elements that you argue is required, in order for you to have a successful AI strategy in your books. And we've seen a lot of discussion about AI agents in the last couple of weeks, and we've seen the stock market, the software as a service providers, they've really struggled. Some of them have lost 60, 70% of their value in a matter of less than a month. What's your opinion in terms of AI agents, and is it a threat to these SaaS companies like the market has initially perceived, or as things going to calm down, they're going to actually realize that AI agents, when you use them in concert with people, actually is going to enhance productivity and make these SaaS solutions more useful and effective at the end of the day?
So actually, there's two questions I think you're asking there, Patrick. One, is AI going to kill, the software as a service market and things like that? Yeah, it is going to kill it because you can build stuff so quick, so easy, and you can customize it for what you're doing. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a whole new market of modular software where in fact you build this bit and they sell you a little module and you build another bit. And I think that's harder to get money out of than other things. The other question is, what is the future of agents? And, the future there is only as good as the direction we give them. We were talking before about rockets on the back of bicycles. You send out an agent without poor instructions, it can knock things down, it can break things, and that's not going to help your business. And where it comes back to is if you want these things to work well, you have to come back to some business fundamentals, which is figure out what your strategy is. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Before you let the tools go out and do it. And I don't know if you'd agree with that, but I think it's, what is old is new again. Strategy first, my friend.
So you bring up an interesting point. I've been thinking about this. I don't know I have an opinion, or I certainly don't have answers on the subject yet. But with these, you mentioned that AI is going to kill these SaaS models. What's going to happen to these companies? What do they need to do to pivot to be successful in the marketplace, in your opinion, to ride this AI agent wave?
I think what's going to happen is they're going to all be AI agent companies pretty soon. I mean, it's just marketing. I mean, most of the stock market valuation is not the functional aspects of the organization, but what is the marketing around it. So they all become AI augmented, AI agent this and AI agent that. But the fundamental thing that's going to come back and determine long-term value is, do they add real value in the process? And I think what you're going to have is a few mega softwares that add real value and integrate very well. And I think a lot of the small stuff is just going to get killed along the way. So it's going to be a few basic systems which you use, some customized systems, and that sort of middle ground of 10,000 users and stuff like that, I think that they're going to have a tough life going forward.
No, no. And the market for, modular solutions, these companies may go away. Will actual individual businesses be the ones to build it themselves? Or will there be a market of organizations that are developing these modular pieces that can be integrated into these larger software deployments, in your opinion?
God, I wish I knew, because then I could invest right. But I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of modular stuff that comes out. And it's going to be how well you play with others is going to be a real determinant of the future. And do you make your module open-ended? And the companies that are trying to build something that does everything from A to Z, I think they're going to get killed off as well.
So it's important to focus on specific business issues and things you're good at rather than trying to boil the ocean.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, if we came back in 5 years, everything they'll say will be wrong, or part of it will be wrong. But, that's the hard thing about the future, is to predict the future.
Yeah.
But I sincerely believe that there's going to be a movement back to value, and people are going to start saying, look, it's not because it's agentic, it's good. It's good if it delivers value, and I don't care if it's agentic or something else.
How do you determine, we have a lot of agentic projects, and I've worked on some myself, and some we've mothballed and said that was a bad idea, or that's not possible, or that won't work now, it might work in 2 years. How do you prioritize those projects, one, and then how do you decide when to pull the plug on one that just isn't going where it should be going?
God, I'm going to pass on that one.
It's philosophical.
I think it's a philosophical question. I think, the thing is, if you start with a really, really clear objective and you can see that you're making progress towards that objective, I think there's a good reason to continue. And I think most innovation and most product development is incremental movement in the right direction. And I think the point where you have to kill it is when you say, look, we've just been playing around here and it's just causing more work and more wasted time, and we're not getting any closer to our objective. And that means having the rigor and the discipline to define objectives up front and have real kill points in the process.
Yeah. Those are good suggestions, despite what you initially said. Yeah, I think you could answer it. So we've talked a bit about the importance of humans plus AI, which you argue in your book. I think there's a quote you have in one of them where AI didn't kill the business, it changed its job. What do you mean with that?
So the quote was there is AI didn't kill the book. It changed the job of the book. And I think in that specific case, AI is a way to augment some information. But I think a really important thing to remember is it's not AI or humans or whatever. In fact, the value, it's like a relay race. And you have to decide what's going to get you to your destination. Should AI run first and then hand off to humans? Should humans run first, hand off to AI? Or should it be all AI, or should it be all humans? And the value here is about the handoff and deciding the order in which you do things. And too many times right now, it's all AI first. And I think that's the most silly advice. People say, we're an AI first company. I said, God, please be a thinking first company and then be an AI company. So it's a question of order and the degree to which you do things in the right way. I actually have a talk coming up where we're talking about AI or humans. It's not the question. In fact, the question is, how do you integrate the two? And one of the things I'll talk about is chess, for example. Do you know who wins right now in chess, AI or humans?
Humans got to be, because the humans are guiding the AI. I assume that's going to be your answer. Wrong answer?
It's still the AI that beats the humans in chess.
Yeah.
Okay, AI plus a human, a chess master, who wins? It's always the AI plus the human.
Yeah.
And in fact, even in the areas where humans are less strong, oftentimes they add a unique skill or a unique competence that AI doesn't have.
Hmm.
And, it's the question about how do you put the two together to work effectively.
Hmm.
And, the question there is not one or the other, but how do you put them together in a smart way? How are you holistic? How do you look at your system and make the system that delivers the results that you want to get?
Hmm.
God, I feel like I'm on my soapbox here. God. But I believe, what I see is I go into companies and I see them so pumped up and so excited about this and said, oh my God, what are we going to do about AI? And I said, actually, what are you going to do about management of your organization? And then worry about AI. Get the fundamentals right. And I feel, each time there's a fad that comes along, we sometimes forget what's important. A few years back, I ghostwrote a book called Flavor of the Month. And Flavor of the Month was anything that somebody was reading about right now and how that becomes the new strategy.
Yeah.
And really what there is there's old flavors which come back again and again. Clear thinking, effective management of people, good team management, integration, diversity, all those things are more important than ever before.
Great point. Now, I've seen this, you've seen this, where just this, doing AI for the sake of doing AI or doing something that automates some process because you could just for the sake of automating it. Organizations can dive off that board and chase those rabbits forever. Um, there's some instances where it probably decreases the productivity of the person, I suspect, or the organization in general, rather than improving it. And in others, it just makes no impact at all. How do organizations decide, where to apply AI and where to say, yeah, we could do it. It's quite possible, but it's a waste of time, or the benefit, the amount of time required to do this outweighs the benefits we would see.
I'm not going to give any names, but I was doing an event with a gentleman, and we have an event which has about 100 participants coming to it. And he spent about a week automating all the inboxes and all the outgoing mails and things like that. And he did all these agentic things and stuff like that. I said, in the end, John, it's not his real name, wouldn't it just be easier to send them an email? And he worked so hard and he made all these beautiful tools. But in fact, you had to think about what you needed to do at the end. It was just basically confirm, glad that you're coming to our event. Here's the login details. So, we can get enamored by all these tools, but if the tools aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and sometimes just going back to the old fashioned, I need to get people for an event tomorrow. I could do lots of agentic things, but I could also just pick up my phone and call them and say, Patrick, we're meeting tomorrow, right? Right? Okay, good. That's done.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. How can you tell, you have organizations that probably every organization, I forgot the latest data, it's like 9 in 10 organizations realize they need to do AI, and budgets are shifting, particularly from an IT standpoint, where money that was allocated for CRM and HR systems and customer systems, they're all being thrown at AI. How, one, as you pointed out, you need to have a strategy. You need to think first before you jump off the end of the pool. But how can you ascertain if maybe it's just not an organization, but individual groups within your company, if you're a CEO or a business leader, how can you determine that this group is ready to do AI versus, if I have them do AI, they're not ready. It's not tied to the business and so forth. They're going to produce results that don't really deliver. They're going to struggle to embrace the core concepts of AI.
So I'd say the criteria that I would put in place is, can you describe what you want to do? Okay. If you can't describe what you want to do, you shouldn't put AI into the process until you can describe it. 2, I would say quite clearly, you have to be ready to learn as you go. So the idea being is to change and adapt and make things better. And the third, and this is going to be a little bit counterintuitive, are you ready to increase headcount when you put AI in? Because a lot of times AI does things faster, but it actually creates more work than was there before. So if what you're doing is you're going to throw in AI and you're going to do, 27 social media posts in 6 minutes, there's got to be somebody who reads those social media posts. So you're actually going to have more people required. So can you describe your system? Are you willing to improve? And are you willing to accept that, in fact, it might not be a cost reduction?
So you would disagree with, it probably depends on the circumstance, a lot of these companies that are doing mass layoffs because they're embracing AI. I read one article yesterday where I also won't name the company. I think they were laying off half of their headcount because they were claiming they're going to do AI.
I think it's a smokescreen to lay off a lot of people in a lot of cases. Sometimes there are jobs which can be automated away. And those are the jobs which are easy to explain, clear to define, where is a clear process of what you're doing. And of course, those jobs are going to disappear and there are going to be inefficiencies. But I think for a lot of places right now, AI is the good excuse for cutting people because, that seems to be palatable. And the reality is a lot of these companies that have cut people have actually found out, with AI in the bunch, their people are working so much harder than they ever worked before that they actually have to come back and hire people. Something I learned about 2 weeks ago, which I thought was fabulous, is something called Jevons paradox. Have you ever heard of this?
No, I haven't.
So it talked about how coal and industrialization made everything more efficient in terms of industrialization. So we figured, in fact, what would happen is people would get fired. But in fact, as things become cheaper, you want more of those cheap things. And in the case of AI, when thinking gets cheaper, you want more thinkers. So in fact, there's a whole paradox where, in fact, when you change the way business is done, sometimes there's more demand, not less demand. For me, it was eye-opening. I'd never heard of this. And I said, wow, that's clever, guys. And it goes back from the 1860s.
Yeah, you have all these folks who, they're in career transitions and so forth. Are there certain occupations where you think there'll be a higher demand than others?
Yeah, I think the new demand is going to come from people who take the time and energy to be experts. So what's happening is AI brings everybody. It's like Lake Wabagon, where everybody's above average. Now everybody's above average with AI. But if everybody's at the 70th percentile, if you want to keep your job, you better be at the 80th percentile. And it's a question now where, in fact, instead of sitting back and saying AI is going to do my job for me, now is the time to actually get really motivated and learn your job better so you can do the stuff that AI can't. So I guess the question is, should you be scared about the future of your job? Yes. Should you do something about it? Yes. What should you do? Get better.
You have Replit and these other tools there you can, as we talked about with AI agents, you can build your own applications if you're an organization or if you're an individual, even for that matter. You think having those available, you'll begin to see the chaff separated from the wheat, if you may, or the barley, or whatever analogy you want to use, with those who understand the business or understand the business issue they're trying to solve will be able to use those tools. But those that don't really understand all those different nuances are going to begin to struggle, and you'll begin to see separation in terms of those who are able to use AI versus those that have it as a checklist item.
No, I think there's a great book out there called The AI Mirror. And the AI Mirror is actually showing you what is there. So in fact, the reflection, you see people that are incompetent faster than ever before. And before they were sort of hidden under the surface. It's like the emperor has no clothes. Now with AI, you see, well, shoot, he doesn't have any clothes. He hasn't been doing any work for the last few months, and he's not adding value. And typically, what you're going to see is the need to be more conscious about the value you're providing. If you want your future in the company, you better be providing more value than an automation can do.
True. Those are some good clips. You need to put these in a book.
I am actually writing a new book, and I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Somebody came back to me and said, look, Bryan, you wrote the hard book first. The book I wrote was How Do You Do AI? Yeah. And actually, what you should have done is you really should have written a book first, which is Why AI.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah.
And so I'm actually working on that. In my next trip to Brazil, I'm going to spend a month looking out at over a river and writing the new book called the Generative Organization Manifesto, about why you need to be a generative organization, not how you become a generative organization.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question. I was going to ask you, for organizations or groups, teams that are getting ready to embrace AI, what should a 90-day, 120-day, 30-day plan look like? I suspect you need to understand the answer to that first question is, the new book that you're writing, is why do AI in the first place? What are we trying to solve?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's like good project management in place. You actually define a target. So, where do you want to be at 90 days? And you work backwards from it. And so it's really hard to say where you should be in 90 days, but I can tell you where you should be in the first week. Right now, most people use AI. You go to AI, like you type in Google, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. Pretty good. What you need to change within your organizations is to stop using AI like a search engine and start using it like a thinking partner. So in fact, it goes from an oracle to a partner, which helps you think more effectively.
If you the concept of muse here, right?
Yeah, the muse, make it your muse. And if you can do that one thing, actually everything else becomes easier because you've changed your way of interaction with this tool in a way where the tool is augmenting you rather than replacing you. And now you get that as a starting point. And what I've been doing with companies right now, I actually have a really cool 90-day plan. So I come in, I do a talk, and I say, you got to think about using AI different. And normally what would happen with that is people would go away. They're really excited. They go back to work and they forget about everything. So we set up a 10-day program where actually for 10 minutes a day, for 10 days, we teach them how to go from using AI to working with AI. Then about 15 days out, we do a sprint on a specific business issue. And then we make the plan for the next 75 days and how you execute that. So what you've done is you've started by changing the mentality. Then you've defined your objectives and not working with every single tool, but you're looking at, this is what we want to achieve. Let's work backwards from that. And a key part of that, if there's any CEO here, what you decide not to do is more important than what you decide to do. CEOs want to do everything. And if you want your team to succeed, you have to take your 10 priorities, make it 2, and really deliver on 2.
Those are appropriate comments because they typically want to boil. All of us do as business leaders. We'd like to boil the ocean, but it's not always feasible to boil the ocean out the gate and measure that. I assume, you got to measure those. So if you're a business leader and you're reporting to the CEO or you're the CEO and reporting to the board, what recommendations do you have for those individuals when they communicate upwards on the results, or maybe they haven't gotten results yet on what they're getting ready to do? What 2 or 3, 4 things should they ensure are communicated so their upward perception is managed appropriately?
So I think the first thing is, I'm going to use an old book, Stephen Covey, Sharpen the Saw. It's about trying to identify ways that people get better at using a tool. And AI is a tool. So sharpen the saw, sharpen the way that you're using it, and say that's our first line out. The second thing is to look at business critical things that you want to achieve with AI, not things that you want to achieve with AI. So you say, look, here are our big, hairy goals that we want to do as an organization, and this is how AI can support those goals, rather than creating these new things that AI can do better.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of, it's playing in the wrong playground. What you want to do is you want to do the things that are important to your business. And I think if somebody wants to be responsible to reporting to the board, they say, look, these are our big goals, and this is what we're going to do to use AI to get to those goals faster.
Start with the business issues. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's going to cost me a few clients along the way because they want to sell lots of AI projects. But, frankly, in the end, if you don't deliver the results, you're not going to be back.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like the digital transformations from years ago. We're going to become everything digital. And people invested in tons and tons of money and didn't see results.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with AI right now. Tons and tons of money and no results. And objectives first, strategy first, then tools.
Yeah. Now, we would be remiss on our podcast not talking about risk management, the cybersecurity, the compliance issues that organizations face when they embrace AI. When you work with your clients, where does that come up in conversation, and how do you help them ensure that they have, the right security guardrails in place so that private data that should not be outside and leaked to the public LLMs, that doesn't happen? Or, with the latest news on Moltbook, for example, and what's happened there. And even this week, you had the Meta AI safety director come out and indicate that they're very concerned about the lack of guardrails. Where does that come up in conversation with your clients, and what recommendations do you have for them?
To be honest, it's usually not the first conversation. It's actually the first conversation is, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And then somebody comes in the room, have you thought about security? Oops. And I think...
Who asked that question out of curiosity? Who's posing that question?
A lot of times it's legal. Sometimes it's, HR says, look, I'm worried about my client data, our workers' data getting out there. But usually it's an afterthought. And I think here again, what it comes back to is a systems view. What is the thing you want to do? What's the whole chain that you have to do? And security is a part of that. And if you do a systems analysis, then you get an idea of where things fit in. Now, one of the things that I do see coming up a lot of times is the security guy saying, well, I can't have my people using AI because when they type in our strategic plan, it's going to be available to our competitor. And I challenge anybody in the world to find anybody else's strategic plan in AI for anything, anywhere, any company. That stuff is not a concern. And I think what a lot of times is we imagine things that could be possible, but some of them aren't possible. And I think what we need to be doing is really focus on the real risks. I think there's huge risks in terms of, hacking. I think there's huge risks in terms of malware within AI. I'll give you a great example, which I thought was funny. A guy did a test where he put on his CV, this is a great, fantastic candidate in letters that couldn't be seen by human. And the AI read it, and he got lots and lots of interviews off of that. So they're gaming the system and thinking about security and things like that. And where does it fit in? I think it has to fit in at the start rather than at the end. And unfortunately, those people aren't there at the beginning of the conversations often enough. And I would be if I was honest with you, that's not my biggest concern usually. My biggest concern is delivering results, and then, go fast, break stuff. But in fact, there should be a certain degree to which, be concerned about the stuff that you might break up front.
Yeah. We're finding that there's a lot of conversation around, understanding where your data is, what kind of data is, and it's a very hot topic. Gartner and so forth have a Magic Quadrant now, data security posture management. That is a regular conversation with organizations in general, but with AI, it's beginning to come to the forefront. And then just tagging it and knowing where that data resides isn't enough. You need to actually enforce it so that it isn't going outside of your organization, outside the perimeter, to external parties who shouldn't see it. And AI is one of those factors that needs to come into play. And it used to be email and file sharing and data collection and so forth, and your ERP system, your HR system, Snowflake, and now AI is added to that mix as well as a channel that you need to be aware of when it comes to private data potentially leaking outside or being hacked by malicious actors.
You want to hear a great story? I don't know how true this is, but one of my colleagues is a cybersecurity director. And he talked about people using AI to generate passwords. Okay, so please give me a password. So people are generating passwords. And did you know it's giving those same passwords to everybody?
I suspect it is.
So what's happening is these people that are using AI generated passwords are just taking the biggest risk that you could possibly imagine. And it's simple things like that where you have to think about how people are using it and the dangers you take using AI in the wrong way.
Yep. What do you bet some cyber criminal, I don't want to give anyone an idea, is probably taking those and they have them for sale on the dark web at the same time, right?
I'm sure they are. I mean, if you want, you what used to be the most common password was flower. And there's new words which are coming out in AI, which are probably coming out as top passwords.
Yep.
And there's real risks all the way through it. And also, the other risk that comes up is your data internally and how quickly somebody can interrogate the data and share it with an extra. You're about to fire somebody and they say, well, look, summarize the strategic plans of our company over the last 5 years and give me this in a 10-page document. AI is really good at that.
Yeah.
So you have to put up the guardrails internally in terms of, managing for human actors.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think AI has a play there in terms of anomaly detection. If Bryan hasn't been accessing those documents regularly or running those type of queries and suddenly is, then red flags can pop up at the same time. So you can be proactive in terms of how you manage those scenarios.
Yeah, but that would mean actually tracking and doing things, which is not all.
Most organizations don't do, unfortunately, today. So.
Yeah.
Well, we're about out of time here, Bryan. Folks, he's at 90,000. Get him to 1 million. We hopefully helped him a little bit today by training a few more than the 90,000 he has right now. Bryan, how do folks get in touch with you? And, what does the typical engagement look like once they contact you?
Okay. So let me give you a couple links. I'm going to give you a link to get a copy of my book and a bunch of AI tools. www.books.genorg.ai. And you will get free copies of 2 great books and 13 AI tools to go with it.
Wow.
If you want to reach me, I am Bryan Cassady, Bryan, the only Cassady, the only Bryan Cassady in the world spelled that way because I have 2 funny spellings. So you can contact me on LinkedIn. And a typical engagement for me is I love to come in, shake things up, talk to people about how you can use AI differently to change the way that you think about it and the way that you use it. That can be just an afternoon talk, or it can be a longer program. And what I can promise is this is always results driven. And that's my little entrepreneurial side. If you're not delivering results, you shouldn't be doing the things you're doing. And I hope I will get to see some of you in the future. And Patrick, thank you for the time today. I enjoyed it. It was a fun talk.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We will need to have you back to talk about another topic. When you get your next book completed after your trip to Brazil,
oh, man.
We'll have you back.
It means I have to finish my book. But maybe you can come back to me after I launch my 10-minute trainings. So we're launching 10-minute trainings in a whole bunch of areas, and they're doing amazing stuff. So
shorter is better, I'm finding, with most content. Almost always.
I think, today we have the attention span of a goldfish. So we have to manage things effectively for the goldfish among us. And I'm one of those goldfish.
Yep.
So, Patrick, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Bryan. For those listening, thanks for listening to another KiteCast episode. We look forward to having you on our next episode. Bryan, thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you.